Shalom. I'm Rabbi Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to discuss one aspect of this week's Torah reading, which is Vayetze, and I'm going to talk about the incident of the well that Jacob came upon as he was traveling to find a wife. After spending all the years studying Torah, it was time for Jacob to come back into this world, find a wife, and find a means of making a living. So on the way traveling to Haran, to the house of Lavan, he came upon a field, and there was a well in the field, and he saw a bunch of shepherds and their flock were just laying around the well, and the well was covered with a big stone. And Jacob asked, it's the middle of the day, why aren't you opening the well to get water out for your animals and feed the animals? And they replied, no, we can't do it until all of the shepherds are here. So Jacob said, doesn't make sense. There's plenty of time. You can feed the animals. So he went by himself and pushed this big stone off of the well so the water was available. There are two very important lessons we learn from the story of Jacob and the well. The first is a question that is raised by the Netivot Shalom. So why is the mention of a well, the mention of wells, so prominent and so much time spent in the discussion of our forefathers? We had Abraham, Avraham Avinu, who dug a well, and the Philistine were ultimately covered it up. Then we had Yitzchak, who uncovered those wells and then found additional wells. And then now, here we have Jacob in this well. The well signifies Torah. We know that the word mayim, for water, signifies Torah. So what was happening, and the reason that this was something that was said for generations and why the Torah spends so much time on it, it's telling us that each of our forefathers was opening up the well springs of Torah, the light of Torah, to spread it to the world. Abraham was doing it through his quality of chesed, of kindness, and love. Yitzchak was doing it through his quality of yira, of strength and gevurah and fear of God. And Jacob, who was a blend of both of the qualities of Avraham and Yitzchak, was doing it as showing that you have to spread Torah to the world, and that this last well of Jacob, contrary to the previous wells, was never closed up. Meaning that ultimately he opened up the way for the light of the Torah to go into the world. And that is a message for all of us, that we are faced with situations where we can bring light into the darkness. The sages tell us that the Jew should be a light unto the nations. Well, our light only comes from Torah. So that's one important lesson that we learn from this. The other is an interesting thing, because when Jacob comes upon the scene and sees the shepherds sitting there, he kind of scolds them. He says, why are you just laying around? The day is still lots of sunlight in the day, lots of time to feed the cattle, the sheep. Why don't you take the stone off, roll the stone off? And they say, no, we can't do it until all the shepherds are gathered. So Shia Twersky has a very interesting take on that. And he quotes the Imre Emes, the rabbi of Gur, who says that Jacob was aware that this was a heavy stone, and it needed everybody to pull it off. So why was he scolding them for this? Didn't he think that maybe they tried to move it and couldn't move it? And okay, if they tried once and failed, why aren't they trying again? But how did Yaakov know? How did Jacob know that they weren't trying repeatedly? Was he justified in rebuking them for not doing it? And he brings down Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who says, first of all, he asks the question, why was it necessary? Why was it necessary to put such a large stone on this well in the first place so that it would take all the shepherds together with their strength to roll it off? Why not just put a light stone so anybody could take it off? So the shepherds were suspicious of one another, and they felt that if it was a lighter stone, that if it could be removed without all of them being present, one shepherd might take more than his share to which he's entitled to. They were suspicious of each other. And Jacob understood that somebody who has no trust in another human being is likely to have another bad characteristic of being lazy. And therefore he understood that it wasn't that they couldn't have tried. He said they didn't try. They were too lazy to try because they didn't trust one another. And the important message we learned from that is how we have to look at somebody else's success. We have to not begrudge somebody's success and not say that, why is he getting this? Why is he successful? And I'm not as successful as he. Why does he have this new thing and I don't? And we have to recognize that as a principle of faith, of emunah, we have to understand and that God gives us whatever we need, without exception. So we don't have to begrudge somebody else. We don't have to take from somebody else. And we learn from this a very important character trait that combines what all of the forefathers have taught us. The trait of loving your fellow man, chesed, kindness. I've said before, as it says in the Ethics of the Fathers, Ezehu Osher, who is wealthy? Hasomech bechelko, he who is satisfied with what he has. And I pointed out this can be read as he who is satisfied with what his friend has, with what somebody else has. That is the true aspect of chesed and ahava, loving your neighbor as yourself, to be happy for everything that happens to that person. So let's take these lessons from the well. Let's take the concept of the light that is released from the well when we remove the stones blocking it, when we remove the dirt that was put there by the Philistines to cover it, and we open up the Torah to the world, we open up the light of Torah. And this month, especially the month of Kislev, we're right before Hanukkah, coming up in another few weeks. We have to access the light that God gives to us. But it doesn't happen without effort. So I thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom, and let's look for the light around us and bring that light into the rest of the world.